Hello, I'm David Abbott, and I'm one of the people behind Fantasy Faire 2014. You're listening to the Drax Files Radio Hour with Jo Yardley.
David, that was impressive. You're the first guy who said the station ID right the first time round.
I'm the only man in the Fairlands with a nicer voice than Victor Mornington.
Hello there and welcome to the Drax Files Radio Hour with Jo Yardley. My name is Draxter Dupre. I'm here with Jo in 1920s Berlin in Second Life in our little hidden attic. We should really make that address public so folks can visit us while we tape, right, Jo? Is that a good idea?
Yeah, that's going to make things work a lot smoother and faster, right?
Anyway, big show today. Jo and I have to run out, unfortunately, though, but it doesn't matter. We'll bring you the most important VR news first, then we'll sign off and leave the rest of the hour to more interviews from my day with the Linden Lab staffers back in Santa Cruz. I have tons of tape. Today we'll hear from folks that work on the financial back end, the whole microtransaction thing, bug fixes and such. It's really quite fascinating when you hear that, and I think it does humanize the Lindens. Yes, believe it or not, they are made of flesh and bones.
Well, so far it's only the finance department.
To humanize the finance department of any organization.
That's quite an achievement.
May I tap myself on the shoulder? Anyway, no, seriously. Also, David Abbott, you heard earlier from the station ID, is with us today. His team brings us the Fantasy Faire. The Fantasy Faire, as we go to air, is in full swing. It started yesterday. 11 sims full of the best content that SL has to offer with interactive hunts and events. Everything benefiting Relay for Life. Last year, they raised over $10 million Linden dollars in donations. I mean, this is really a staggering number.
I'm sure there are lots of ways of, gathering funds and things like that. But it is something, quite an interesting side of Second Life that a lot of people won't know about. And it's interesting to give that some publicity for the outsiders.
A couple of housekeeping notes. Please subscribe to the show on Stitcher. You find the banner on the right. Stitcher is a radio app, a podcast app that is a must-have for everyone. You can always call us on Skype, Drax Files, email radio@draxfiles.com, or send an in-world message if you want to get in touch. We had fabulous comments on the blog. We always have, but this past week, specifically referring to the ideas we put forth about branded viewers. He told me Tiponi commented how relatively easy this could be accomplished right now. We are going to have him on the show to tell us a little bit more specifically. Also, we talked about, Jo, remember that for educators with younger kids, it may be difficult to use Second Life because kids could teleport out into the wider, crazier metaverse.
Not just educators, of course. I mean, I personally would love to invite a lot of my friends and their children and young people to go and walk around 1920s Berlin. But, I'm not quite sure about doing that with, if they can teleport out and anyone else can teleport in.
Well, as a matter of fact, as is my understanding, Douglas Voyager commented on our blog that it's relatively easy to keep people from teleporting outside with a script that is available in third-party viewers. So we're going to have him on the show too, or maybe folks can get in touch with him and explain this in more detail, because obviously Jo and I, we say it all the time, we're not the most technical people on the planet.
To put it mildly.
Also, a lot of feedback on the onboarding issue, the noob experience, the orientation experience, and based on the video by Skyspinner Soulstar documenting the very lonely and disorienting orientation island experience. I mean, keep those comments coming and call us. What ideas do you have? What should we implement?
And the second Ebbe said himself I think it was on Twitter, that he tried the new user experience and that it was rather bad. I got excited and hopeful that finally things were going to change. And now everyone's trying it and everyone's writing about it and everyone's, saying this is so wrong. And I'm really excited because it feels like they're actually going to try and change it.
Some of the ideas that are generated within the community, I think, are very good. We just have to really kind of put them all together in one place and bring them over to the lab and have a discussion about that. Some ideas that have been tried may have failed for other reasons in the past. This is a new day. The stability has improved and such. But it boils down to, I think, of getting people to the places that they seek very quickly. So it has to be determined what do people actually want, and then match that desire with the content or the community.
Hello, welcome to Second Life. This is how it works. Where would you like to go? Here you go. This is where you want to go. That's how it should work. It is like visiting a strange city in a different country. When you arrive at the station, where do you want to go? And if you don't know where you want to go, you just wander around a bit on the station near the station, and you get in all sorts of trouble, and then you go home.
Because near the train station, there's always the most interesting places, the brothels and such. Sorry, I bring that up again.
Maybe that's more your cup of tea than mine. When you get outside the station in any strange country, there should be a bus or a tram, and you get on it and you say, excuse me, I want to go to this or that museum, and there you go. And right now, there's no public transport in Second Life.
I've said it many times. Over the summer, I will go out with the microphone and try to tape people while they're actually going through the experience. I have to find some victims and then the consent to tape them. But that should be very interesting, sort of a selected focus group. We have a Leap Motion giveaway again today. Yes. Thank you very much.
Excellent.
You have to answer the following question. I just released a Drax Files World Makers video about chemistry. The question is, what replica of a German city that is shown at the very end of the new video, what German city is shown? There's a little tour. The group tours that city. What is the name of that city? Post the fact that you know it on the Drax Files profile feed at my.secondlife.com, and then send a private IM to the avatar Drax Files with the correct answer to enter the drawing for a Leap Motion.
Very good.
We have a whole bunch of sponsors, new sponsors also. We have a great sponsor, SL Go by OnLive. We talk about it all the time. It instantly upgrades your old PC. Plus, you can run SL on an Android tablet or phone. They're expanding to serve Germany, which is very important. And they will have PayPal as an option also pretty soon.
They're going to add not just Germany, but a couple of other countries as well. Quite a list, I think.
We need to move on to the top topics. Jo, speaking of the Leap Motion,
yeah.
there's a device that claims that it's better than the Leap Motion, and it's called Aquify.
Yeah, and not just better than Leap Motion, but also better than the Kinect. In generally, what they are all doing, all these things, Leap Motion, Kinect, and this one, all they're doing is recording your movements somewhere away from the computer.
And I have to correct myself. This is not a product yet. This is a company that aims to create adaptive gesture controls where the machine learns how humans interact with the gesture device, or maybe no device at all. There's a couple of illustrations here on the article from VentureBeat that suggests maybe there really is no device. So in a nutshell, what it is right now, it's a software platform that is called Fluid Experience, and they're building on top of it. These are the guys, by the way, that created the Kinect and sold it to Microsoft. So we're moving away again from wearables.
The less you have to wear, the better it is. And I think that, as I said before, there will be a gadget, perhaps even built into your computer, that will record your movements wherever you are in the room. I still feel like wearables are a little bit like the remote control from the 1950s that had a long wire to your television.
In the meantime, we have 2 more head-mounted displays coming on.
Popping out of the ground, left, right, and center.
The Dive and the Altergaze. So there's a company called Durovaz or Durovaz from Germany, and Stefan actually...
It's the Durovaz.
Durovaz, yeah. This is a device where you just pop in your smartphone. It just pushes lenses very close to your smartphone phone that you pop into the ski goggles, and then you can interact with your smartphone that is sort of glued in front of your eyes. And this is around $60, a little bit less than $60. Now, the current Kickstarter campaign of the Altergaze mobile virtual reality system is, I think...
If you've got a 3D printer, you can print yourself.
You can print it yourself, the Altergaze, and then you can custom brand it. And we had an interesting Twitter conversation. Altergaze apparently tried to contact Linden Lab a while ago, and they're very aware there's actually a little glimpse of a Second Life avatar in their promotional video. So my question is, what is needed to make Second Life compatible with this? Because with SL Go, Second Life works on a mobile device with on-screen touchscreen controls. where do we get the tracking data?
Yeah.
And you know what, Joe, you answered it when you sent me this link about a Rift type head-mounted display that you can build yourself with a hot glue gun. Mm-hmm. There is a how-to tutorial on the Road to VR blog. You can glue this stuff together yourself with getting lenses from binoculars, gluing them into ski goggles, or maybe using the dive as a basis. But I learned from that there is a program called FreeTrack. You glue an LED on your head-mounted display, and your normal webcam that is now built into every laptop can track where that LED is, and that little software application called FreeTrack will then translate the position of your head and relate that to mouse movements, what mouse movements would be, and translate that into any application, game application, Minecraft, whatever. And the other thing you would need to build your own head-mounted display is a little application called Splashtop. Splashtop kind of mirrors the computer screen of your desktop to the mobile device.
So it's a little bit like SL Go, except you're using your own computer.
That's it, Joe. See, you're not so untechnical. You intuitively understand what's going on.
I do. I'm just very intelligent, but not very technical. But I want to take a few steps back, just really quickly. The most interesting thing about the AlterGaze is not really that it's how it looks and that it's cheap. You know, they're just using a smartphone, and the resolution of that is higher than the DevKit 2 of the Oculus. That is stunning.
I suppose that must be true for the Dive as well, then, because it's pretty much the same concept. You just glue that cell phone in front of your nose.
Yeah, and smartphones already have a gyroscope, so that's that provides low latency head tracking.
The smartphones have a gyroscope, but the problem with Second Life right now is, and I really would like the technical listeners to chime in on that, the mobile version of Second Life, SL Go, does not utilize the gyroscope. It utilizes on-screen controls, touchscreen controls, to maneuver and change your camera. But it is my understanding that with this little application FreeTrack, you can track your position, your head position, and then translate it to the key commands of any game. So that could really work. And Stefan Welker from who makes the Dive told me on Twitter all they need for SL to work is the head tracking data, the output of the head tracking, and then sort of feed that into the thing. So in other words, guys, talk to each other, make this work for SL so that SL remains a player also in that arena, I would say.
The great thing about this technology is that we can have friends and family and people who are not in Second Life very easily take a quick 3D look in Second Life. You know, here, put this phone on your face and have a look around.
Until you said, put that phone on your face and have a look around. I just listened to you and go like, yeah, you're right. That actually entices people to visit Second Life, people who would never... Oh, wait a minute, they have to put their phone on their face.
I hate mobile phones. Sorry, I'm trying to hide it, but I can't.
Well, anyway, we forgot, no, we didn't forget, but we didn't get to this yet. Apple is entering the head-mounted display market.
It's not really news because there was a story earlier about them. They're asking for patents. They haven't all been granted these, but they're going to the patent office and saying, we've got these ideas for virtual reality glasses. And that's about it. The technology that they're adding is interesting, but nothing really new. But it would be quite un-Apple-like for them to be the last to get involved with something that everyone else agrees is going to change the world.
The Rift is going commercial in 2015. Is that confirmed? Yes or no?
No, it's not. It is a bit of creative writing, I think. As far as I can figure out from a little article written in the Business Insider Australia, is that that someone who works on with Oculus said to someone else that they will be disappointed if they don't have a headset available at retail for ordinary people by 2016. That's according to Jim Redner, an Oculus Rift spokesperson. But that is extremely vague. of course they will be disappointed if they don't have one by 2016.
And another item that you sent me, which is also a little creative writing, I guess speaking of Palmer Luckey and the Oculus folks, anonymous logins are allowed on Facebook. When you sent this to me, go like, wow, this is like a complete 180 to their entire, look at anonymity on the web. But then, no, it's just for the app. So Facebook still gets all the data, but the third-party app makers that build on top of Facebook, you can opt out of giving your data to them.
It is very nice that you can now play virtual farms or whatever it's called without actually having to log in with your real Facebook account. This is not going to make Facebook usable for avatars at all.
It does not suggest anything in terms of how they will deal with avatar anonymity in their speculative Facebook version of the metaverse.
It's pretty useless information for us.
All right. So that does it for the live to tape portion of the podcast. I know you have to run, Joe, and so do I. We're going to get to the Linden interviews now. Joe, what will you be doing this weekend? Any tips, special events related to the metaverse as we know it, or related to May, perhaps?
Well, I'm going to be very, very busy because May 1st, yesterday till May 3rd, in 1929, there were violent, bloody riots in Berlin. And we are going to recreate that in Second Life. So, yesterday there was a riot, and today and tomorrow it's going to be chaos. So I'm going to be too busy to go anywhere. Sorry.
These are the Bloody May riots.
The local government didn't allow communists and socialists to march in the streets. And the communists and socialists were rather angry about that. And they did it anyway. And police opened fire and killed about 33 people in one day.
And shortly thereafter, the Roaring Twenties were over. Hitler came to power in 1933. You blog about this. It's really interesting. And again, this is one of the examples where SL can be sort of a time machine with that type of role-playing. Oh my God, we forgot something.
What?
We forgot that the Silicon Valley Virtual Reality Conference is happening at the Computer Museum in Mountain View, May 19th and 20th. And this is a must-go because Philip Rosedale is there, Palmer Luckey's there, and... ta-da, Ebbe Altberg will be there on the Metaverse panel. And there's numerous hardware makers. There's toys to play with, people to connect with. Let me just say this, Joe. We have a discount promo code if you want to go there, and you get $100 off if you go to svvr.com and punch in the promo code Drax 2014. Now,
Excellent.
Drax 2014 sounds really good, almost as good as Draxter 16. If you get my drift. But you get $100 off admission.
I don't get it.
Very American reference.
But this sounds really good. So someone sent a Zeppelin because I really want to be there. But, I live a bit too far away.
We'll speak to Carl Krantz, organizer of the conference, in a couple of weeks. He'll give us more detail. But you can go to the website now and look through the list of panelists. It's absolutely fascinating. Thankfully, Linden Lab folks will be also there to remind those 20-year-olds that there is a metaverse out there. And they may not even have to create it.
Yeah, excellent.
By the way, speaking of Philip Rosedale, we'll have him on soon as well.
Excellent.
The High Fidelity blog has recently been spilling more and more beans about what they're actually doing over there, which seems more trying to create the entire backbone for a new metaverse rather than sort of a centrally controlled virtual world. You got to look at, there's a diagram out there and Philip Rosedale is answering some questions. And when we have him on, we'll pepper him with similar questions and try to really sort of go deep here. But this is really interesting. If he's out there to create the standards and the backbone for a metaverse, where we're all interconnected. I mean, theoretically, that would make OpenSim and Hypergrid and all that stuff completely obsolete.
Oh, and Drax, before we go, I just want to mention one little thing. It's not really meta reality or anything virtual reality at all.
What?
Apparently, somewhere in the 1980s, I think, there was a game being made, a video game cartridge, and it was so bad. It was made by Atari, and the game didn't work, and it didn't sell. And, Atari was so embarrassed by that. It was a huge flop. So there was this myth going around the computer game world that they actually got hundreds and thousands of these games and buried them somewhere and even put some concrete on top of it so that no one would ever know about it. And everyone always thought that it was just a story and a myth. And recently, someone got enough money together to go and dig up the stuff there. And they found the games. They found hundreds of these games, some of them in plastic, still wrapped, never used. The writer of Ready Player One was there.
Ernest Cline, yeah.
Yeah, he was there because if someone is talking about 1980s computer games, he has to be there.
My favorite guy on YouTube, the Angry Video Game Nerd, he did a video about the Virtual Boy. We played it months ago. He did a review of the E.T. game back then, so we'll put that there too. It's a fun watch. It's a game for the Atari 2600. Anyway, this does it for the Live to Tape portion of the show. Much more to come, but at this point, I have to say goodbye to you. Have a great weekend. Joe?
Yeah, you too. Auf Wiedersehen.
And now on to some more interviews with Linden Lab staff. I taped those a couple of weeks ago in Santa Cruz, where the remote workers that used to be in a Mountain View office that is now closed, they're now scattered throughout Northern California, and they meet every once a month or so, or maybe every other month, in Bacon Linden's house in what they call a Santa Cruz work day. In other words, Hawaiian shirts and flip-flops are mandatory. No. Today we'll hear first from Baker Linden, who is a server-side developer. And is the pun intended? I don't know. Baking. And then halfway through the interview, Has Linden jumps in. He's the manager for quite a few dev teams at the lab. He's working on various projects. He'll talk more about that specific challenges connected to those later on. The audio, I have to say, is a bit windy. There was a lot of wind. It was conducted, the conversation was conducted after lunch outside at the harbor. I apologize for the quality. But anyhow, here's Baker telling us a bit more what he's working on right now in Second Life.
I fix the bugs that are related to the back-end side, our side of Second Life. Allowing large groups to load, groups that are over about 12,000 people or whatever used to not load, and I fix that. I'm currently wrapping up the group ban project, so you'll be able to ban people from your groups rather than just eject them. It'll act like a region ban or an estate ban or even a mute ban, the mute list for yourself. But you'll be able to permanently prevent people from getting back into your group once you kick them out. I think that in Second Life that that kind of having a community is really, really important, and being able to fix things to help facilitate better group communication and things like that are really important.
How hard is it to tackle one of these problems? Like, you have to go into the code and you have to sort of dig deep. Is it akin to plumbing in a house where somebody built the entire plumbing system by themselves and you're a certified plumber and you go in there and go like, how the heck does this work?
Yeah, that's a pretty good analogy. Yeah, it's very similar to that.
My father-in-law actually built his house with the plumbing, and that's a true story. A plumber came in and says, how did this hold up for 40 years?
Yeah. That's right. I won't comment on anything like that, but I mean it's really just going in and seeing how it's done now, and then coming up with a solution on how to either change the code or add new code, new services and things like that to achieve the objective of fixing the problem. So for example, to let large groups load, what I had to do was figure out first why they weren't loading. So I went through and I found a really large SQL query that just was taking way too long to execute, and it was taking more than 5 minutes or whatever, so it would never return. So what I did is I took it apart and I broke it into smaller chunks that would return quicker, and then I built a little service you could hit from the web, and then it would go in and it built up the list a lot quicker, and then it returned all that values. And I tried to reduce the amount of data that was being sent from the server to the viewer. So instead of a list being, let's say, 10 megs, I tried to reduce it down so it was about 2 megs. And this way you'd get the data faster, and for people that have bandwidth caps, you also have less data that you're actually pulling into the viewer.
What is your background? How did you learn all this? Did you study computer science?
Yeah, I got my bachelor's in computer science, and I got my master's in game design and development. And before I worked here, I worked at a game company in Colorado.
How different is Second Life from a game?
It's a lot different. Like, games are very tuned to the specific game that you're making. So if you want the game to look pretty, you're going to optimize the graphics a lot harder than everything else. And you won't have to worry about things like chat, and you won't have to worry about things like, I have 1,000 items, instead of having 15 swords and 15 sets of armor. You have infinite amounts of everything that you could possibly imagine, and management of all of that is just absolutely, insane. And it's in that respect, it's very similar to an MMO, but an MMO where you can have an unlimited inventory, and that inventory can contain anything you want.
Doesn't exist
Yeah.
other than Second Life.
Right.
Basically.
Yeah. No, there's nothing that's comparable to that.
So in going back to your daily task, when who makes your assignments when you come in, and then do you then report back how long that may take you?
Yeah, and I do that quite poorly, but
exactly. I suppose that it's really difficult to foresee how long a project will take.
Yeah.
And also say this from
that's quite true.
from a resident perspective, they want everything done yesterday.
And I try to keep people up to date. I go on the user group with I don't remember what it's called. It's the one Simon Linden hosts.
Yeah.
It's the server user group. It's not the beta user group. I usually try to keep people up to date with what I'm working on so that people at least know that there's progress being worked. It's not just this ticket didn't just go into a black hole and it's never going to be seen from again until we decide it to be shown. I'm trying to keep people, in the loop on, how far I'm going. I don't go into specifics, obviously, but I try to at least make sure that, hey, stuff is being done. It's taking a lot longer than I'm expecting and things like that.
The status of the so what you just explained with the group loading and then the banning rather than ejecting.
Yeah, well, you can eject, but now you can also ban people, which is an eject, but it's permanent. It prevents them from getting back in the group. Currently, you can eject them, and if it's a free-to-enroll group, they can just join right away.
Right.
And so now we'll be able to make it so that they won't be able to come back, and they won't be able to harass anybody in the group chat. I'm not fixing group chat, by the way.
Good that you said that, because this will be something where people say, well, who is fixing group chat?
Yeah. Every time I mention that I'm working on groups, Simon's working on group chat. We're working on it, but we really are working on it, and it's not me though.
It's a great insight, really, how something that is seemingly simple from a user perspective is really complex, because you got to dig deep into it.
Well, and not only that, but you also have to sort of work with what you have too. I mean, we could just re-architect the entire group chat system, but that would take a significant amount of time and money and resources just from us to do that. That would take at least a couple people out of the loop for a year,
And then on top of that, there are all of the places that we don't recognize that everything interfaces. We could fix the obvious problem, but it touches many other things. Many other things touch it and expect certain behaviors, and it would take at least as long again to rebuild it as it would to get all those working properly.
Right.
Now we're getting into a wind problem. You haven't identified yourself, good sir.
I'm Haas Linden.
Haas is
H-O-Z.
H-O-Z. And what are you doing?
I'm one of the managers of Baker and the other Second Life developers, helping them to have good direction for what things we can spend time on at any given time, and working with him to get the estimates on how long it's going to take, and is the benefit worth doing that as opposed to doing something else that may have a higher benefit for that amount of time.
Right. And the boss is right here, because I was going to ask, from my vantage point from the outside, is that you guys have a really cool group together, a really nice atmosphere. Is that due to the boss?
Certainly does not hurt.
Totally due to the boss. No, it certainly doesn't. It certainly doesn't hurt to have it.
Yeah, no, it's. I think we've got a great group of people and a great culture, and Ebe coming in has fed in well to that and helped amplify a lot of good things which already were there.
Is there some stuff that you have to, where you regret that you have to basically, if you will, shoot it down because you identified a complexity and you can't delegate the manpower there because some other stuff is pressing?
All the time. I'd say not a week goes by where we don't have that kind of conversation. I can't think of any specific examples off the top of my head, but it's always, we would love to work on this. This is something we know is a problem and we could fix it, but the person who we need, say, 6 months to fix this is also the person we need to fix these 4 other things over the next 6 months, and there is more value in getting these fixed than that one thing. Or that's a representative example, but that kind of stuff happens constantly.
There's been a couple times where I've ended up having to say, yeah, I totally have the solution for this, and then I implement it, and then it breaks 3 other things, and it's all stuff that we can't break because it will break people's content. And, you know, a lot of the hardship that we have with trying to choose what to fix is, what are we going to fix that isn't going to break years worth of things?
Yeah.
And I mean, this is an obvious then dilemma, because at some point I'm sure you would think if you just have content expire, that would make things easier.
Absolutely.
But then that would piss off a lot of people.
It would piss off a lot of people, and we don't currently have the structures on content and the tracking and the content level to be able to do that in any kind of effective way. So we'd have to build a whole system on top of it, which no one would see anything for quite a while, because it's all underlying foundational work before we could even get to that discussion.
What are you overseeing now?
I am the manager who's on a day-to-day basis keeping an eye on all the stuff going on with Second Life. We've got a lot of other things going on in the lab that other people are looking at, and I'm trying to keep on the maintenance group, Project Sunshine, Project Interesting that are getting ready to go out, the Facebook Connect and Twitter Connect, another team that I'm working with did that.
I didn't ask you how long have you been around?
It's 2 years this month.
I just want to get this on the record. I think sometimes residents may feel that Linden Labbers are not, or Lindens are not passionate about the world, and I just don't get that here at all.
So I understand what you're saying. I'm to be completely honest, I fall on both sides of it. I don't spend much time in Second Life. I am not an active resident doing lots of things. My background previously, I spent 5 years working on The Sims, which it's not the same, but there are a lot of similarities. There's a lot of overlap there. And I have a passion for what you can do with Second Life. I have a passion for a lot of the things that we enable people to do. And I love the creativity. And I love, while I play a lot of very linear games that they lead you through an interesting experience, I love the openness and the abilities that Second Life you can do almost anything that you can conceive of there. And I think that's really exciting. And I find it amazing and inspiring to see what directions people do on that and how they build on each other's work. And that's where my passion comes in letting people run with what we give them.
Just
and
the empowering nature.
And trying to minimize their barriers to doing what they want to with it. And I do find that part very passionate. We have a limited number of people. There are a limited number of hours in the work week. We have various developers who have some very great strengths, but not everybody can do everything. And how can we maximize that limited pool of resources to enable the residents and the creators to do more amazing things and to have more fun, to make it easier for us in the future to maintain and keep things working, to make future development easier, to make things break less often. Trying to balance all of those is something I find fascinating, and it's really where I want to give the biggest contribution to everything, and give so people like Baker don't have to worry about all those, and they can focus on what they're doing and do the best possible job on things like the group work that he's been doing, see the context of it in the bigger thing, but not have to be pawing through 75 competing interests and be focused. This is the most important thing for you to be doing now.
About you, what attracted you to Second Life? I mean, to apply for the job. That's
well, honestly, that was because my recruiter was like, "Hey, there's a job opening over here, and you should go for an interview."
Did you know about what it was before?
Yeah, in my master's, we had to go into Second Life. It was between 06 and 08. We went in and we had meetings and things in there, and I was a dragon. I was a green metal dragon.
That's awesome.
And my name was Bustool, and every once in a while I'd bust down to just an underweared man and just run around yelling who wants to ride the bus, but that's beside the point.
Well, as we have clearly established, the world where everybody can do whatever they please.
That's exactly. Well, I mean, honestly, that's why I love it so much now. I mean, I want to be able to facilitate people's dreams of like what they want to realize into this world. I want them to be able to do that, and I want them to be able to do it well, and I want them to like to do it. I want them to have a really enjoyable time, whether it be hanging out at a bar or drinking a beer down on the beach, or creating the newest house or whatever,
or creating a bar where other people could drink beers,
right, and have like a place where people can dance on the tables and people can I mean, I love the fact that you really can do anything in here, and it took me a while to figure it to like kind of learn that. Just talking with residents and working in it and being able to just dress my linden. That's what I like to do. I like to go on the marketplace and buy stuff and attach it to my avatar.
That is weird. I feel the same way, and I hate shopping in real life.
I do too.
But in Second Life, I love it, and I identified why. Because in Second Life, I know that it's probably another creative person I buy it from, and it's not some huge national chain that just puts the shirt in there that was made, we were talking earlier, but by a Malaysian kid.
I actually got a note card from somebody that I bought a cricket sound, and it was kind of meant for our maintenance meeting, so that at the end when we're like, does anybody have any questions, we can play the little sound.
Which
and
is funny when that happens.
Yeah.
Continually.
Yeah. And so, I bought that, and somebody actually responded, was like, wow, this is amazing, a Linden actually bought my stuff, and like that really made me feel good. And when people can say like, thanks for letting this group load so that I can actually manage it, it makes me feel good too. So I like giving back if I like people that are going to want to appreciate, the hard work that we do.
Last question, you just hinted at it, but how important is that feedback from the community? Even if it's just some random IM say, dude, I see an improvement, thanks.
Yeah, no, I really, that's what gives me the most satisfaction, is knowing that what I'm doing is actually making people's like lives easier. I like to do that in my own life. I don't like to, why make it harder on yourself, so I like to make things easy on people. Why not, and I like it when what I've done, somebody has at least acknowledged that like what I've done is helped them and made them, made their lives a little bit easier and made their experience with our product just that much more enjoyable.
So that was Baker Linden with his manager Haas Linden, H-O-Z, coming in a little bit later. After that conversation, we went back to Bacon. I know it gets confusing. Bacon Linden's house, and I continued the conversation with Haas a little bit more. And this audio also sounds a little better because there was no wind at the house. I asked Haas to describe a little bit what they are doing here at the house, what the concept is behind getting together here and working casual Friday style.
There used to be a Linden Lab Mountain View office many years ago. When that office was closed, those people started working from home and missed having a community of the office. So they got in the habit of periodically, once every few months, I think, having a work day where they would all come to one house and work together. Bacon, who is hosting this one, opened it up to everybody and said, let me know, so I can make sure I have enough power and my network can support everybody who's going to be here. So today it was just anyone who wanted to work from a different place than our normal office, wanted a different environment, wanted some different interactions and stimulation than we normally get in the office, which is why I'm here. It's always nice to be sitting in a different location, talking to different people and getting some different perspectives.
Well, you could do it in a virtual world. I heard about one where you can meet.
Tell me more about that. No, we have a lot of meetings in World, and as wonderful as in World is, it doesn't yet fully replace face-to-face contact.
Very well said.
One thing that I hope people get from these podcasts and talking to us, we all are very passionate. We want to make Second Life the best place that it can be. As we talked about a little earlier, there are lots of trade-offs, many of which there's no reason the average resident would have any clue these trade-offs exist. whether they be the amount of people we have, how long something is really going to take, the other impacts it may have. Occasionally there are some business reasons why we can or can't do something, most of which is totally invisible to the average resident. And something that I really would like them all to understand is that we don't make capricious decisions. We don't just do something because, this is top of my stack, I'm going to work on this today. All of our decisions are very carefully considered for what impact it's going to have to make our lives easier internally, to allow us to meet regulations, to make life better for everybody in world, which is really one of our top focuses at all time, but not our only one. There are certainly times where we look at, one of our Lindens has a week until they're needed on this next project. What are 2 or 3 simple things they can do that may not have a big impact, but they're the right person, they can tackle it quickly. Sometimes we do that. But anytime there's a big effort that needs more people or longer periods of time, we have to balance it with all these and schedule and get all the right pieces together so that we can actually do it.
I think you're explaining this really well, because when you think about it, it's been pointed out before, you are running a world in the sense, or you're administering a country with the same problems that any real country, the United States. We now have a struggle in San Francisco with gentrification, with people who are impacted, other people are vilified. It's a very complex problem. And I guess that is very transferable to something like Second Life, where there is an enormous amount of different stakeholders with very, very different priorities.
And very different levels of willingness to give feedback. We like to hear what people say, and we will focus on things that people want, but we also recognize that sometimes it's a very small set of people who are the most vocal about an issue, and while we don't dismiss what they're saying, trying to put it into perspective and understand which issues are really impacting the most people, where we can do the most good with limited resources. And no matter what decision we make, we recognize we're always going to disappoint some people somewhere. And trying to balance it so we're not always disappointing the same people, or we're not completely ruining things for people.
So you're only disappointing this subgroup on Monday, and then on Tuesday you go on to disappoint another subgroup, just to mix it up a little bit.
The alternative is to never please anyone either and do nothing. But it's like you said, much like in any country, like in the United States, like in San Francisco, you're always juggling all of those kind of things. And we feel it, and it's we do take that very, very seriously. I can't even begin to count the number of times we've had discussions along those lines, or heard from 3 or 4 or 5 different influence makers within the company about how we should weight all of these different concerns and different factions, and we always are frustrated when we have to disappoint or anger someone. But it's a reality. We could never move forward if we made sure to never disappoint anyone.
And you have it on a global scale, which you alluded to also when it comes to regulations in terms of how economic transactions are being done, monitored, and so on and so forth.
And the other one on there, an analogy that just came to mind, it's not unlike if you're trying to repair a bridge on a freeway. You can't shut down the freeway to build the bridge, even though you could build it much faster and better in a month if you could totally shut down the freeway for a month. But realistically, you can't do it. You have to keep all parts of Second Life up and running. So how can you build enough to let that bridge be bypassed while you rebuild it? Or how can you rebuild one section of it while reducing using the other side for both directions?
And in the real world, you could do it at night. But in Second Life, you can't do it because it's never night.
Exactly. I think the work we did on Sunshine was part of that, where we probably could have got it done faster if we could have just shut down the grid and focused on it and then brought everything back up with the new stuff. But we had to bring it out phased. We had to have a server component that would support part of the viewer. Then once that was up and we had tested, we'd go and release part of the viewer that would use part of that. Then we needed to go into a second pass on the server stuff, because we now had the viewer stuff so the server wouldn't break now that the viewer was there, and the exact same kind of thing.
I feel I keep you guys from. I feel really bad. Like I keep you guys from working. A final question, because you said the feedback is important, and I'm so psyched that I for the first time put something in the newly reopened Jira, and I asked actually Void Pointer, who works on Oculus,
Yes.
in World.
Which Void Pointer was a guy that I used to work with, and I helped get him over to Linden.
Yeah. Oh, he is fabulous. His avatar is insane, by the way,
Yes.
with the bats. Actually, and then I didn't know what was the right channel, what was the most, for me, efficient channels for you guys to do this. And then I was told, do it in a Jira and do this process. So
Jira is the best way. I know there is the perception that we ignore Jiras or Jiras wait until we have enough votes on them. There is constant triaging on a daily basis of Jiras. We talk about them. We have some fantastic guys who are going through them very regularly and commenting on them and asking for better repro steps or clearer descriptions, or sometimes it may not be the way you want it, but it is as it's designed. And there are ones that come through, and I see them go constantly. I think you may talk to Maestro here in a little while. Maestro is one of the guys who does that for certain parts of it very frequently. I am amazed at the job they do with that. We look at all of them, and that is the best way for residents to get it in the system, where I said where we start. Again, on most of them, you're not going to see anything right away, but that's because it's going into this delicate balancing act between a million other priorities and a million other possible work things, and trying to figure out how to fit it.
And it doesn't mean that you ignore it, and that's really great.
We very much don't ignore it. Yeah. Often we'll look, okay, we've had 4 Jiras, all distinctly different, but they're kind of in the same thing. This is a good piece of work to take now, because we can tackle a bunch of stuff without repeating the overhead that it takes when you tackle any one bug. They're all in roughly the same area, so somebody can go in and do all of them at once. We listen, and we want people who understand that we're balancing those and how their concerns fit into it.
So that was Haas Linden, but now on to the... So that was Haas Linden. Now on to the main man of the house, Bacon Linden, whose very tolerant and lovely wife allowed their residence to be overrun by a whole bunch of, I said that before, flip-flop wearing, not exclusively, Lindens. Bacon does payment testing, so he goes in on the web mainly to buy land, objects, and delivers them to payment testing avatars. And Cyrus, who you will be hearing as well in this interview, works on the payment backend. My first question, I felt like I stepped into a hornet's nest.
What is the biggest challenge with payments?
Oh my God! Is that a trick question?
We got several of our payments devs.
There's other people out there.
Several of our payments devs are here. So that is a loaded question in this one.
That is one hell of a loaded question.
I like to throw out a very broad question that takes 5 hours to answer, or some people jump off a bridge.
Of course, my perspective is different than the developer's perspective, because I test it, right? So
you basically test what these guys do.
Right, exactly. And so I always think of myself as being a super user, kind of, as far as payments goes, and so I advocate for the user a lot.
So give me an example how you test it. You go in, you buy stuff, or what?
Exactly. It's exactly true. I go in and I basically run through all of the ways to buy anything in Linden. Mm-hmm. A lot of the things I'm paying attention to is the interaction between the companies that do the processing of our payments, right? Because we don't process our own payments. That's right. Because of compliance issues and stuff, we're not a large enough company to actually do our own.
I actually have my German credit card on file, so they go through them, and then one time I changed it to PayPal, so I have all experiences from the Global Connect. I think is a provider.
Right, Global Connect is our current provider. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sort of.
No comment.
Yeah, there were problems. Sometimes it didn't take my card.
Right, and it could be just random weird stuff can happen with payments, and it's a lot of times your payment service provider companies are not as good as they're not as technical as the companies that we're used to seeing in our industry, and therefore they don't understand our problems a lot of times. I often feel like I really like to take ownership of the customer experience a lot of times. I'm really concerned about what does my customer see. As a QA person, I tend to be the expert on the user experience because I exercise it constantly. And all those things, right? LAN, buying Lindens, both viewer and web. Every little thing, stipends, the tier limits, there's just it's a very complicated system. It's a very complicated system.
Tier limits?
Tier limits is how much where you're restricted how much you can purchase in one day, 1 month.
Oh.
Right, so that's something.
Oh, that's right. So that you can. Yeah. You
or how about the nightly biller? Right, the nightly biller comes through every night, and it assesses for land purchases or fees for premium memberships. There's so many aspects to payments, right? And it has to be exactly right all the time.
Not only, like you explained, it's very complex, but you subcontract entities that go through the billing. Basically, that means they're verified credit cards, right? Is that what it means?
Yeah.
And PayPal is a service provider.
Yeah.
Right.
Global Collect is a service provider, and they both process types of payments through our system. We're subject to their problems though too, right?
Exactly. That's what I mean. Yeah. Because then obviously.
Paying them to teach me how to hate.
Yes.
Who's that?
Hey.
Hi,
there.
How are you?
I'm Enkidu Linden.
You want to join this conversation real quick?
I'm having trouble resisting, but I have other things to do.
Cyrus, you've been in how long with the lab?
I've been here for a little over a year now.
Okay, so you basically have to work with stuff that others built.
Oh yes.
And that can be maybe annoying.
That has been, without going into too much detail, the most interesting part of my job, because a lot of it is, you have one little niggling bug that's been floating around Jira's for the last 3 years. And, you have to go dig into it, figure out what's going on, figure out if you can even fix it, and if you do fix it, what repercussions it's going to have, it's going to break something else, so on and so forth. I mean, like Bacon said, there's a lot of, it basically comes down to edge cases. We have, 90%, 99% of users can go through flows with no problem, and then you have that last 1% where they, have 6 different stipends and, credit overrides and all this jazz, and things slip by and you're in trouble for it. So it's covering everything.
The thing about that too is that problems tend to show up not with the common user, not with the everyday user. The problems that are reported and the things that we deal with quite often are with what we with power users, right? Somebody who runs a market, who runs a store.
Somebody with
runs a store,
30,000 transactions a day.
Yeah, the marketplace people, or currency traders, or land barons, or because these are the power users. So it's a very small percentage of people on Second Life, but it's also a very important percent. They're the engine that keeps it running, right?
You were just saying it's like somebody who has 5 stipends, but you're talking about somebody who has 5 alts and gets the stipends.
Just somebody who has a lot of odd. Special case things set up in their user information that we don't necessarily test. Every single one of those
can you give
combined together.
Can you give me an example of what then would go wrong, for example, with one of those policies? What are the complaints that you're getting, for instance?
Well,
somebody says, I had transaction X and it didn't go through.
Okay, so the most recent one, the easiest one to point at, is we recently released a new transaction history page, which I'm sure everybody knows about.
Good example.
And we pushed it out the first day, and people were running into issues because most people were seeing it fine, but people who had more than a certain number of transactions or had different types of data coming in that we weren't expecting, that we didn't catch in our initial testing, and it just didn't work for them. So, we heard about that instantly because they are the people who use the transaction page the most. So,
while we were still deploying it, we were hearing from them.
Oh yeah, big time. that was like maybe 1 hour, 2 hours it was live, if that. So we had to roll that one back, and we're working on it still now. But things like that, they come up and bite you. So
residents have to keep this in mind. You're a relatively small group of people dealing with enormous complexity in many different layers. Let alone now we're we're talking about one of the most important things of a multi-million-dollar economy, an economy of bigger than the Ukraine.
Right.
Maybe Putin should go after Second Life.
To give you an idea, I worked at HP for 12 years, and the complexity of what we do, a big company like that would have a team of 100 people or more to work on this. We have less than 10. Right? Now we have to be really careful. We have to make sure that whoever we have is really good at what they do. I'm the only QA person on payments. crazy when you think about it. But I also, but we do it, and that sometimes you're a lot more agile and can react to things more quickly because of that too. Right. So there's advantages to that too. But it's that's a real perspective, for if you come from a background like I have.
I just have one more question.
Sure. Yeah.
If you can give me one example of a problem that came up when you did something, when you bought something, and then what happened?
Sometimes when you have servers that are down, because that's probably the one that's probably the most common, and we give the least information for it because it can be a variety of things. Mm-hmm. So when a server is down, we say, well, your transaction temporarily won't work. Try again later. Mm-hmm. That's probably the most common thing that people see, and it really truly is temporary. Mm-hmm. I mean, we monitor that stuff so closely. If something like that happens, they're calling me in the middle of the night. I mean, we're all
we're instantly, all our phones are lighting up and emails are coming in.
It's all hands on deck, and we're all.
That's
over
like when I used to work at the local radio station. The satellite is down. Come on over.
Yeah, and so that's probably the most common thing. And luckily, that doesn't happen very often.
That was Bacon Linden, and a little earlier we heard Cyrus Linden, Saeros, and Enkidu Linden came in there, but then quickly left, and we'll have the full Enkidu Linden interview next week. It's fascinating conversation. I hope you guys had some fun and enjoyment with the show today. I'm sad to see Jo have to leave earlier, but that's life. 1920s Berlin needs her more than I do. We're closing the show today with David Abbott, who hosts Fantasy Fair Radio, and he writes the hunts that are going on right now at Fantasy Fair 2014. An amazing event, and you have to see that compressed creativity, all to benefit Relay for Life in Second Life. I wish the mainstream outside of SL Press would take notice, but I'm not holding my breath. We gotta do it ourselves. All right, that's it. Here's David Abbott with a little bit more about Fantasy Fair, and we'll be back next week. Thanks, bye.
Fantasy Fair 2014 is the 6th annual event in the series. There is shopping, there is role-playing, there are acts and DJs and fairies and elves and demons, and if you can think of it, we've probably got it there somewhere. We are extremely fortunate at Fantasy Fair because of the way we operate, the way we're built. Each of those 11 sims has been built by somebody unique. Each individual artist brings their own concept to their sim. So you will arrive in the beautiful woodlands of Fairlands Junction, and you walk north and you'll find a staircase that will take you up and up and up to Alia Baroque's sanctum and into this beautiful abbey-like structure of old stone and long avenues. And you walk along the long avenues and across the great square in front of the cathedral, and then you find a staircase, and that takes you down into Blackwater Glen, where the pirates live, a village back down on ground level, and you go through there to Morningvale Thicket, which is this dark, rich, somewhat creepy kind of environment, a very foresty, sort of dark forest. And from there you walk into Eliseo Ember's sim, the Fairy Court, with 150 meters, I think it is, of trees standing proud in the middle. And then you hit the swamps, and then you hit the White Tower, and then you hit the village, and then you hit the giant airship above the clouds. Yeah, and if you want to see an example of what truly talented artists can do when you give them that blank canvas and say, right, off you go. We all start with the basic tools and take it from there, but it does take, I think, that certain artistic spark to be that next step on that is the difference between a representation and immersion. Well, the merchants are another part of the magic. Each merchant will have at least 2 RFL vendors per store that are special items, which you will only be able to get at that point at the fair. The sales of those items goes straight to Relay for Life. I have a nodding acquaintance with a gentleman called Stingray 9798 Raymaker, who is the American Cancer Society's staff partner for the Relay for Life of Second Life. We are a sufficiently large fundraising presence as a whole in world. We figure on ACS's radar enough that they actually assign us a member of staff to be our liaison for relay season. The goal this year is simply to have fun, to celebrate relay. We're going to make some money along the way. Hopefully we'll make more money than last year, but the number is not as important as the work that it funds. All that matters is that the money is made and that the money is spent to beat cancer. That's the only thing I actually care about.
The Drax Files Radio Hour with Jo Yardley is a weekly production of Basic Drax Entertainment. The show is supported by Leap Motion, SL Go by OnLive, Stitcher, Bot Girls Identity Circus, Caravel Design, Vika Creations, Humanoid Animations, Escapades, Botanical, Death Row Designs, Nantra, Angel Red Couture, Fallen Gods Incorporated, What's Next, Avacon, and Landscapes Unlimited. Special thanks to David Abbott for providing the station ID this week. Contact the show via Skype Drax Files, Avatar Drax Files, or email radio@draxfiles.com.
So here we are again with Baker, who's not from Bakersfield.
I'm from the East Coast.
And your avatar is a chicken, and you have an afro and
some sunglasses, a $sign necklace.
Oh yeah, of course.
You know, because you gotta making the money. I have a ring that says cocky on it, and it has a picture of a chicken. And then I have a little ankle bracelet, and it says, "If chicken found, please return to Linden Labs. Warning: chicken may bite. Do not feed." And then it has my name, and then if you click on it,
oh my God,
it gives me electroshock.
Wow.
We like to have fun in our maintenance meeting. It's a fun meeting.
I don't like people who run a world to have fun. I'm from Germany. People need to feel pain when they go to work. It's not work if you don't feel pain.
Be efficient, feel pain. If work was fun, then it wouldn't be called work.